You're listening to ADHD Support Talk. ADHD Support Talk is brought to you by addclasses.com. Visit www.addclasses.com and sign up for helpful online events and resources today. Well, I want to welcome you back to ADHD Support Talk. I'm your co-host, Lynne Edris, and I am a productivity coach. So I help overwhelmed professionals reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort, all so that they have more time, more energy, and more money for what matters most to them. And I'm a woman with ADHD myself, guys, so I get it. I've been there, I've done that. And I often say I've come out the other side, so to speak. So I've gone from living in a constant state of chaos and underperformance to live a life of more success and fulfillment than I really dreamed was possible for me at one time. And I believe that every single one of you can share that same success yourselves. You can learn more about me and what I do and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. And when you text the keyword my quiz, that's MYQUIZ, no spaces, to the number 33777, you'll get complimentary access to my online productivity breakthrough quiz to identify your productivity type and get to the root of what gets in the way of your follow through so that you can stop struggling, take control, and show up like the incredible person you really are. So I have with me today my co-host and the founder of the podcast, Tara McGillicuddy. Tara, welcome.
Hi, I'm glad to be back. As Lynn said, my name is Tara McGillicuddy. I am the co-host, creator of ADHD Support Talk Radio, which is the longest running podcast specifically for adults with ADHD. Like Lynn, I'm also a woman with ADHD. I've been involved in the online ADHD support community since 1997, so close to 30
Yeesh.
years now, believe it or not. I offer lots of different ADHD online resources. You can learn more about me and the products and services I offer by going to my website, taramcgillic.com.
Awesome. So today we are going to talk about disclosing ADHD. Where do you want to start, Tara? Anything in particular you want to share?
Yeah,
It's a
this
topic that's
is,
come up for us a couple
yeah.
of different times in the recent week or so. So that always tells
And
me
it,
it's something we
yeah.
need to talk about.
And it's something that I think affects every person who's diagnosed or identifies that they have ADHD. And it's a broad topic, but it's so important. So I think, like, what's your point? Why, when you're disclosing, before, if you're disclosing and how to disclose, I think that one of the most important questions is like, why? What's the point of disclosing? What disclosing it? What are you hoping to get out of it? What do you want to get out of it if you're going to disclose it? So I thought, so that I think before we even talk about the how and what to say and all that is why? What's the point of it?
I think that's a really good point, actually. So disclosing to your aunt so and so, who you know is going to be judgy at the holiday dinner, is very different than disclosing at work because you need accommodations or you
Yeah.
want accommodations, official accommodations. So thinking about like what's the point of sharing this? I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, it's different than talking to a family member as opposed to disclosing it in a workplace environment.
Absolutely. It's what I think in the conversation I had with some clients earlier about this today is it makes me very sad to
Hmm.
think that here we are, as we're recording this, it's March of 2025, and we still have to be guarded about who we share information regarding our ADHD.
Yeah.
That makes me sad. It makes me sad that people still don't understand it. It makes me sad that there's so much misinformation and misperception and stigma associated with it. And
Yeah.
I had always hoped that by now we would be past this. But it is what it is. But those are things that we have to take into
Yeah.
consideration when we're thinking about mentioning or disclosing to someone that we have
Yeah.
ADHD.
Well, it's not like you said it, but it's not just about the ADHD itself. It's about who is your audience, who you're disclosing
Absolutely.
to. And I know we're talking about ADHD, but it could be said for probably any other type of sensitive information about yourself.
Absolutely.
Why you
Absolutely.
disclose. I mean, I use left-handed because I'm a left-handed person, and there's not as many consequences to disclosing you're left-handed. But people who have, you know, different sexual orientations. That, depending on who you talk to, your religion, your this, we
Right.
live right now, I know by 2025, we hope to be better. We live in a very divisive world right now.
Right.
So I think that's something in addition to the why, it's knowing your audience, not only knowing the person or people you're disclosing it to, but what also I found over the years, which is really important, that some people don't even realize, it's the time frame. When are you disclosing it? Are you disclosing it when you just like 20 minutes? So sometimes when we disclose it, the when can make it sound like an excuse, and the person on the other end is just so perturbed, they're not going to listen
Right.
to it.
Right.
Whereas, assuming you weren't late, but you might be, but if you disclose it at a neutral time or time where the person's not upset with you, that's going to be, they're going to be more likely to listen, to accept it, than when you just did something ADD related that upset them. And I'm saying, like, being late is an example because that's
It's
something a
an
lot
easy
of us
one.
deal with. And that's something
Yeah.
people with ADHD, without ADHD, do too. And it's like,
Right.
wait a minute, you don't
Right.
have ADHD. Why am I the one on time?
Right.
So I think these are like really, these are key things to look at. And you have to like meet where you are right now. Yeah, in a perfect world, we just say, I have ADHD, this is blah, 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 or here, read a book about it, or read a pamphlet about it. But it changes from situation to situation and person to person and moment to moment.
Absolutely. So context is super important.
Yeah.
And that's hard, right? Because one of the things that a lot of us do with ADHD is we're prone to oversharing,
Yes,
right? That
yes.
reflexive sharing in the moment without really thinking through either what's coming out of
Hmm.
my mouth or the context in which it's coming out of my mouth and who's receiving it and the repercussions and all of that. So learning to hit the pause button a little bit and
Yes.
think for just a moment about what you're about to share, I
Hmm.
think is
Yeah.
is is really hard, but also really important. And that the context matters. It really
Yeah.
does. I mean, I hear from clients all the time whose, spouse, partner, friend, whatever, coworker got upset with them because they tried to explain something that they were having a
Hmm.
hard time with, and they used ADHD in the explanation, where from
Yes.
their perspective, it was an explanation, but the
Yeah.
way it was received by the other person, it sounded like it was an excuse. And,
Yes.
that's all in, again, like being aware of the context and how you position or language or word what you're sharing, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
different to say, this is hard for me, and that's because I have ADHD
Yeah.
and I'm working on it. It's something that I'm working on, or could you
Yeah.
help me with it, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But the way you share
Yeah.
it matters a lot too.
And sometimes you don't even need to use the term, the word ADHD. You
Right.
can say something like, my brain works this way, and because it works this way, this would be helpful. Like
Right.
sometimes people will shut down the person you're trying to get help from or educate because of their experience with ADHD. And we all have different experiences. Maybe they, heard something, the ADHD, whatever.
Right.
So sometimes it could just be like, okay, I'm a creative, scattered person or whatever. I mean, I know those are the right words. And because of this, this would be helpful. So I remember years ago doing, I think Ari Tuckman did a class on disclosure that's in the ADD library. And I think that was one thing he suggested is, just talk about the accommodation you need or the strategy you need. You don't necessarily need to use the word ADHD. And in some instances, using that term is gonna, you don't want to or need to deal with right now.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I always talk with my clients about. And you,
Hmm.
like, right out of the gate, like, what's the point? Is that,
Yeah.
what's the point for disclosing it? And coming up with the language that you're comfortable with is important. And I often tell my clients, before you, depending on where you live, laws are different. We are not attorneys. So if this is something you're dealing with in the workplace or in a business setting or in a educational setting, please make sure that
Yeah.
you get appropriate legal advice. But there can be consequences regardless.
Yes.
So to think through, like, what is disconnect ADHD, the condition, from what it is you need and what's going on for a moment and think about, what do you need? What is it that you're wanting to get from sharing this information? And
Mhm.
it's, it can be more effective in a lot of contexts to say something like, what I know works best for me is this.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
it's because of your ADHD. What
Yeah.
what I know works best for me are, frequent
Hmm.
check-ins,
Yes.
with my boss to make sure that I'm on track. What I
Hmm.
know works best for me are written instructions. What I know works best for me is, timers, or, having earplugs in that minimize the background noise, or
Yes.
not being able to see people walking past my window, whatever that is, what I know works best for me is blank, or what I need to be successful
Yes.
is blank.
Yeah, you
Then,
don't.
how can you help me? Right?
Yeah, yeah, the strategy, what you need is one point, using the term ADHD or neurodiversity typical, whatever the term is, not everyone's going to understand those words, and that might
Right.
shut them down or be like, what's that mean? Whereas getting back to what you said, advocating for yourself and telling what you need, how your brain works best, what strategies work best. And it's going to save you a conversation if you're just saying, okay, this is what works best for me. And yeah, I don't know. I like the quickest approach, the easiest approach.
Right.
And there's a time and a place, maybe for educating people about ADHD, but everyone's different. And what's most important is getting your needs met, your self-care, your self-esteem. And God, years ago, I was exhibiting at, it was a learning disabilities conference. This was, I think it was back in 2010. And somebody came up to me and asked me, "Oh, what do you do?" And I started getting to the ADHD. And he says to me, he's like, "Oh, I don't think that exists. I think people are just over medicated." And I just like was so
Right.
upset. I'm like, and then he's like, he saw my face. He's like, "I'm just kidding." He's like, I was, he had ADHD himself, and he was just trying to be funny. But I
Right.
was, I'm like, wait a minute, this is a place where people are supposed to understand each other.
Right.
So sometimes you have people that like to push buttons because they have ADHD, and it's, yeah, I'm just
Or
like,
some other
yeah. And
agenda.
then
Right.
then he saw upset at how upset I was getting and read me, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I was at a conference, my ADDclasses.com banner and all that, but you can't, yeah, I just think whatever's the easiest. And I know disclosure is a big thing in the workplace, and it's different from state to state, for anywhere people from all over the world, so country to country. Really be careful about that, because even if
Right.
you disclose you have ADHD or any type of disability or condition, you can still be fired. That doesn't say, and depending on a company, like a big company, they have lawyers on retainer that like,
Right. Right.
you're the one whose self-esteem is going to be shot to bleep. You're the one who's
Right.
going to have to hire your own attorney, probably out of pocket.
Fight
You're the one.
for,
So
yeah.
so that's something to really think about. Even if the laws are in place, you're the one who's going to have to prove it. And I don't say the bigger the company is, but some of these companies, like, they have insurance policies against this. They have lawyers on retainer. It's just you're gonna be the one who's gonna be stressed out. And I'm not saying not to do it, but really pay attention and really think
Right.
about,
Right.
is it the best way? Is this gonna help me disclose I have ADHD? Is it gonna help me or
Right.
hurt me? And
Absolutely.
I've talked to someone I know personally who was at a company for almost 30 years and disclosed he had ADHD, and he got fired for something that, yeah, it was related to ADHD, but ADHD wasn't the sole cause of it.
Right.
And this person's in his 50s and has been out of work for a while, and it but he thought he was disclosing he had ADHD. He had good attorney, and he lost. So, if he had done things differently, of course, maybe he didn't get fired for doing something stupid, but this is like more of the ADA disclosure he thought was going to save him, and it didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You just don't know. So I think that question again, like, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
What do I want out of this? And
Mm-hmm.
and think about the cost, right?
Yeah.
Think about the cost to you, the cost to your energy, the cost to your emotions. I was talking about a client with this earlier. In my earlier days, I've been at this for a long time too, not as long as Tara, but almost 20 years. And in my earlier days, I felt so compelled to be an educator. I felt so
Yep.
compelled to set people right. I felt so
Yep.
compelled to inform people. And honestly, I still feel that way, but I also balance like what's the cost to me?
Yep.
What's it going to cost me, in
Yeah.
terms of my energy and my emotional well-being to fight this fight right now, to get into this
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
person. I had a nurse at my family doctor where I used to live was my family doctor for like 20 something years. Very, very long time. I knew everybody on the staff. But she had a new office manager who checked me out one day or checked me in or something. I can't remember what the deal was. And she made a comment about, I don't remember what the discussion was about, but she made a comment about, well, ADHD medication is not really medically necessary. So if people aren't willing to take the P test, then they can do without their medication. And I felt like somebody slapped me across the face.
Yeah.
But I looked at this person and I thought to myself, she's a nurse.
Yeah.
She should be better educated than this.
Yeah.
And the like, indignant, righteous person on one side of me wanted to educate her and call her out on her, what, and have it out right there.
Yeah.
And the other part of me was like, this person is clearly so close-minded that I don't
Yeah.
think there's really anything I could say
Yeah.
that's going to make a difference. So
Yeah.
I had a conversation with my doctor in private about what she said,
Oh, good. Yeah.
kind of went around the other way. But in that moment, I knew it was going to really work me up and it probably wasn't going to make a big difference. So
Yeah.
I
No.
decided to handle it another way. So you
Yep.
have to think about like, what are the repercussions for me,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
right? Not just
What,
legally,
yeah.
but
Yeah. What are the
energetically,
consequences?
emotionally,
Yeah. Yeah. The frustration. I mean, some people just, whether it's ADHD or anything else, you're, they're so stuck in their opinion, their belief, you may not change their mind. And,
Absolutely.
in a doctor's office, but if it's like a social setting, it's like, if I'm going to be this frustrated around the person explaining them
Right.
ADHD, do I really want to spend as much time as them? Do I want to spend time with these people?
No,
I mean,
no.
that's the thing. Like in a workplace, in a medical situation, and family,
Right,
it's kind of
right.
somewhere in the middle. But if people don't respect me and listen to me, if they're not respecting and listening to me about ADHD, they're probably going to do that with other things.
Are they worth it, right?
No,
Is
yeah.
it worth investing your time and your energy and your emotions in that? I think
Hmm.
those are
Yeah.
important questions to ask. But again, we have to remember to like hit the pause button for just a
Yes,
second and
yes. Like,
make a
yeah,
decision rather
yeah.
than, a
Like,
verbal vomit or a blurt or,
yeah,
whatever.
what's the point of this? What is my need? What need is going to be met, or am I trying to get met by this? And does it necessarily make sense that I have to use the term ADHD and educate people about ADHD? Or can you do it with just saying, okay, this type of strategy works better for me, or this type of
Right.
accommodation works better for me, and that thing.
So then
And
it becomes,
there's,
I'm sorry that I'm late, but I'm working on it. I really
yes,
apologize.
yes,
I respect your
yes.
time, but I'm trying.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry if it negatively
That's
affected you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Or if it's someone that you know and trust, be like, hey, send me a reminder 5 minutes before or something like that. And then it disclosure. It's like so many other things with ADHD. It's not like a simple cut or
right.
dry
It's
explanation.
nuanced.
And it totally depends on the situation, the people or person involved, and yeah, it would be simple as you could just hand them a little card saying, I have ADHD, read this, help me. But yeah.
It doesn't work that way. No.
I mean, there
So
might be
I'm
some people it works for, but more often than not, no.
probably not. One of the things that I was just thinking about, Tara, as we're talking about this, and memories are kind of popping in of like ignorant things that people have said,
Yeah.
right? So then, I think talking a little bit about if you choose to share that you have ADHD or bring ADHD into a conversation with someone and you get one of those like, ignorant responses, literally ignorant, as in like not having knowledge, ignorant
Mhm.
responses like, oh, I don't believe in that, or oh, I think that's just an excuse parents and schools use to, whatever, sedate children, or, I think everybody has ADHD, or, excuse my friend, well, I'm not going to say it, the BS stuff that
Yeah.
we've all heard. How do you manage that? How do you handle those situations where, somebody says something
Yeah.
unkind or something that's hurtful for you, whether it's meant to be or not?
Well, I think I frame it a bit differently than you. I mean, you use the word ignorant, and what I'm coming to learn the more and more I deal with just human beings in general is that we have different perspectives. We have
Absolutely.
different facts. We're educated on different things. So the person may have just been exposed to, educated themselves with different materials than you, and they not necessarily be ignorant. That's what they believe. They could have really educated themselves. I mean, hey, there's a whole world, there's like a flat theory. People
Yeah.
believe that the world's flat, and if you research it, there's a lot of data to support it.
A lot of data. Yes.
Which is a topic for a totally different day and different podcast episode, different podcast itself. But this is the thing. They're maybe in a different reality. They have a different frame of mind, and I
Right.
used to get upset by it, but I was just like, it's kind of like the political world we're living in right now, where people are in different realities. And
Yes.
if you maybe you just don't want to spend time with those people, or it's just like, all right, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about
Right.
something we have in common. And I think that's a thing that shifted over the years, where it's just this person is just for me, I don't even know. Some are ignorant, some are just clueless, ignorant. Some of them are just have a different perspective, have different things they've been taught and learned. And
Hmm.
I think that so maybe looking at it, kind of backing away, I looking at it from a different point of view, like just it's like right now in March of 2025, like it's like that with almost everything, not
Right.
everything in the world right now, but whether
Right.
it's ADHD or politics or I don't know,
Flat
where
Earth theory. Right.
yeah. I mean, I bring that
Anything.
up because people be like, I'm like, yeah, but I thought it was a joke and I researched and I'm like, oh my
I
gosh, there,
know. I know.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I honestly don't know who's right or wrong. They could be right and I could just be living in a different reality. I mean, I
Right.
don't know. So that's the thing. We have to, not have to, but I think it's helpful if you realize that some people, we might be, I don't even know if reality is the right word, but
It is your
yeah.
perception, your
Yeah,
perspective.
your
Yeah.
perception. It's kind of like, I'm not saying the people who don't believe in ADHD are mentally ill and psychotic, but if you've ever dealt with somebody who has a severe mental illness, or I'll take example, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and when I
Right.
talked to her, we were living in two totally different realities.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not that that's more extreme than the other, but I think it's kind of like accepting people where they are, and it's
Yes.
like you have to decide, is it worth the time and the effort?
Right.
And they have their own experiences. Maybe they had a bad experience where, they were placed on, because there was someone that I talked to, I don't know how, he was like, I was placed on ADHD medications a little bit younger than I am, and it ruined my life. And he had experience of just being like heavily medicated, or that was his perception. Whereas I wasn't diagnosed until my 20s. I'm in my early 50s. So I was like, oh, I wish I got diagnosed. I wish I could have
Right.
been on ADHD medication.
Right.
But here we are, both two people who have ADHD, who believe in ADHD, but our experiences were so different. So he's against medication because he had a bad experience with it. Me,
Right.
I don't really talk about my experience, my view of medication, because no matter who I talk to, I'm going to upset them. So to me, I say it's private, so it's none of your business
Yeah.
type
It's a
of thing.
personal choice. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean that's my take on it. And but I know I'm a sensitive person. I'm also an empath. I'm
Yeah.
highly
Yep.
sensitive. So it's kind of like, okay, I need to choose my battles when it comes to
Yes.
what I'm gonna focus on and how it's gonna upset me. And
Yeah.
humans are very entertaining people.
Sure, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the phrase that comes up for me when you're talking about that is like, you do you,
Yes, exactly.
right?
Yep.
So we finding that point at which you can let go, because,
Yeah.
ruminating on it
Yeah.
getting yourself sucked into it,
Mm-hmm.
spinning it around over and over and over again in
Yeah.
your brain isn't going to help you. This is a little bit weird, but one of the things that I say to myself when I encounter somebody who is like, they are not rational from my perspective of what's rational. They're not
Yep.
logical from what my perspective is of what's logical. They're not kind. Like someone that I can't even imagine like
Mm-hmm.
what would make someone act that way, say those kinds of
Yeah.
things, whatever. The thing, or somebody just plain old nasty. The thing I always say to myself is, thank goodness I don't have to go home to that.
Yes. Yes.
And that
Yes.
puts me back in it kind of,
Yeah.
it puts a little bit of a, I don't know, a shield
Yeah.
between me and
Yep.
them and reminds me that I'm okay, that I am
Yeah.
safe, that
Yep.
my life does not have to be,
Mm-hmm.
impacted by them. So when I
Yes.
tell myself, at least I don't have to go home to that,
Yes.
it is me
Yes.
reminding myself that I will close the
Yeah.
door when I get home and they will
Yeah.
be on the other side of it and
Be
they
like,
can
okay,
freaking
yep,
stay
I
there.
only need to
Yeah.
spend 20 more seconds with this person. Yay.
I'm
Yeah,
out.
that's,
Right.
yeah, yeah. And
Right.
that's, yeah,
So there does part all of this kind of goes back to that. You do have to protect yourself. You have to protect your
yes, yes.
energy. You have to protect
Mm-hmm.
your emotional choices, your emotional state. You have to protect your focus. You have to
Yeah,
protect yourself from, you know, what may come down the pike if you choose to share your ADHD,
yeah.
in the wrong context or with someone who, isn't appreciative or doesn't understand, or there's
Mm-hmm.
blowback for sharing it.
Yes,
And
yes,
also let go because, that's
yes.
their stuff.
Detach. Yes,
Yes, that's their
yes.
stuff. It doesn't have to be your stuff. Not easy, but
No,
important, I think.
but it's
Really.
such an important topic because it affects us in all areas of our life, from personal to workplace and everything in between. And it's yeah, and if we've all, like I said, we've all dealt with people who didn't understand it when we tried to disclose it or
Absolutely.
spread awareness. And I know, as I said, I've almost been in this, it's been almost 30 years. My perception, my understanding, the way I go about it changes. And you might talk to me
Hmm.
2 years from now and it might change then too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we are ever evolving as human beings. And I think, too, like one of the things I was thinking about as we were talking about this in the beginning is depending on where you are in your ADHD journey, in your
Yes.
discovery, in figuring out how to manage it in a way that works for you, you know, we can really hyper focus on things. So really, if you're in
Mm-hmm.
the kind of if you're here because you're in that ADHD deep dive of
Yes.
research and trying to find help and solutions and strategies and gather all the knowledge that you can, you're going to be in a different place than where I am or where Tara may be or somewhere else may be. And
Yes.
that includes the person that you're considering sharing the ADHD information with. So I think that,
Yes.
keeping other people's perspectives in mind is really important as well. It's not easy. Any
No.
last thoughts you want to share with our audience?
I mean, I just think going back to what I talked about in the beginning is, before you disclose, think about what is the point? What's your why? What are you trying to accomplish
Yeah,
with the possibility of disclosing it? And can you get your needs met in a different way, a better way? What's most important for you, putting yourself first?
absolutely. I love that. What's the point? It's a good thing to come
Yes.
back to. Well, I hope our audience found this helpful. I mean, I think it's always an important conversation and it's something that comes up a lot with our clients. We would love to hear from you in the ADHD Support Talk community on Facebook
Yes.
of your experience with sharing ADHD, disclosing your perspective, anything you've done, anything you've tried. I always love to get a conversation going about like how do
Hmm.
you respond to someone when they say something stupid about
Yes.
ADHD? What are some of your favorite comebacks when people say ignorant things about ADHD? Come join us, connect with us, let us know, how we can support you and connect with the rest of the ADHD Support Talk community in the Facebook
Yeah.
group.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, watching it on, comment below, like share it there. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
definitely welcome you to come over to Facebook, but if you're listening to this through the YouTube, comment below. We want to know, like, what are your experiences? What have you found helpful? Do you agree with us or do you not agree with us? Let us know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, again, I hope everyone found this helpful. It's an interesting conversation and one that's important to have from time to time. So thank you for joining us on ADHD Support
Thank you.
Talk. As always, we appreciate your attention. Take care.
Thank you.